It's the same demons a lot of times over and over and over. It's the same stuff over and over and over. So after a while, you're just like, okay, my job is just to stand here with a sledgehammer and Christ just keeps putting rocks in front and I just keep. And so it's a work. It's a lot of work. It's a grind. And the sensational stuff doesn't really, it's interesting. The really interesting stuff is what they end up, what God compels them to reveal about him or Our Lady or the saints. So you'll learn things about them that is just absolutely stunning. And so those are the things that are really interesting about this line of work, not the stuff the demons do.
Bless the Lord, O my soul, bless.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to Armor of God. As always, thank you so much everybody for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully you will be edified with what we've put together for you here. Anyway, this will be another compilation of different subjects shared by the Exorcists, and hopefully the things that are put together here will be most useful to you and your family. In this video, there are several things shared by Father Cole about the angels that hopefully for those of you who don't know about these before, you might be able to find the things shared by Father Cole here helpful. But as I said earlier, this is going to be another compilation of different subjects. So before I share those things about the angel, let me share Father Ripperger's thoughts on the horror movies released by Hollywood.
The one thing that Hollywood really gets wrong, though, on a consistent basis is leaving the impression, and it's done for sensational purposes, leaving people with the impression that the exorcist is scared and the demon is bold. And that's actually the exact opposite of the way it is. Because especially with an experienced exorcist, the demon's acts within a gamut. As long as he stays in his lane, he's safe because he's got the church's protection backing him up. And so as long as he stays in it, doesn't mean that it's not a boxing match, because it is, but he's relatively safe. Whereas the demon knows that he's about to take a brutal beating and there's nothing he can do about it. And so he's the one that's actually scared. They're very good at hiding it a lot of times. But you can tell by their nervous laughter and things like that that they're scared to death when an experienced exorcist walks in, because they know this is going to be really ugly for them. And so it's actually the other way around. It's actually the demons that are scared, not the exorcists. So they kind of get that wrong. They also kind of leave the impression that that every possession case is, where, like in Annalise Michel's movie, where everything's flying around. And that's just not how it works. I mean, it does happen, but it's only, we keep statistics actually, it only happens in about 7% of the cases. The rest of them are all pretty much the demon manifests, you beat him up and he leaves. There's not a whole lot of stuff that's externally going on. And there's not a lot of sensationalized stuff that's going on. People ask, have you seen all the stuff in Hollywood? Yeah, I've seen that stuff, but it's just not that common.
And now going back to Father Cole about the angels, he was asked a very interesting question. In fact, I think I saw some of you ask this question in the comments before. What keeps more angels from falling, just like the other fallen angels before?
The reason is the way they were created. They were all given the same trial. And the trial was a one-time affair. You either chose to be with God or you chose against him. And it was total, absolute, definitive, complete. It's over with. They made their choice. 2, God could create more angels if he wanted to, but it appears in sacred tradition, sacred scripture, that he made created a number of, and he did the angelic society, and that's it. We don't know how many, but we know it's not a few. We know that there's metaphors in the sacred scripture, 10,000 of 100,000, and so that metaphorically could mean billions of them have already been created, all unique, all known personally by God. It could have been trillions, don't know, but just multitudinous. That's enough, no need.
The next question that Father Cole addressed is also very interesting. And he was asked this: are the hierarchies flexible? Can angel move from one to another hierarchy? And are the demons' hierarchy definitely set?
Well, it would appear from the teaching of the theologians that the hierarchy is set because the good angels is absolutely set because their beatific vision was in proportion to their knowledge. Whereas, by the way, if we get into heaven, which I hope we all will, we will be getting into heaven in our rank, not according to how bright we were, but how much charity we had, okay? And so once the choice is made, you're in a rank forever. And though that's true with the demons, you keep your rank because hell doesn't destroy nature. So if you're a seraphim, you're a seraphim forever. If you're a guardian, you're a guardian forever, an evil guardian in this case. If you're a principality, you're an evil. You don't move. You stay where you are.
There are a few more interesting clips from Father Cole as well as Father Ripperger that I'd like to share with you. But before I do, though, let me share you a story shared by Father Carlos Martins. And please remember that for every audio clip I'm sharing here in this video, you can find the links to the original videos in the description box below, so please do check them out later.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of weird things, and a lot of them I just can't speak publicly because the demon was being scandalous and belligerent, and it would be advertising for he would love nothing more than for me to share a lot of them. But I'm thinking there's one in particular, one moment when in this particular exorcism, so I had a very full team there, and it wasn't the largest room in the world, so it was kind of tight. And then what happened was the demon was making a foul smell in the room. It smells like feces is being held 2 inches from your nose. So the demons can do that. It is, at the end of the day, an illusion. There's no feces to be had, but they can manipulate the forces of nature to produce that effect in you. And also, I will say this about that experience of a smell, or even about the experience of when a demon makes the room, say, really cold or really hot. When the smell goes away, it goes away with the snap of a finger. It doesn't linger. It's instant on, instant off. So as we're experiencing this, on this particular day, there were 2 of us exorcists, and the other exorcist was pronouncing the prayers, and he used this foul odor in the prayer that he used, in his address to the demon. So he heaped insults upon him, couched within a command, you cunning, foul mouth, evil, enemy of man, I command you to answer me in the name of Christ, you malodorous fiend. And then the demon just stopped, looked at him and said, me, malodorous? That smell was you. And then he gave a look on his face like he was offended just at the... It was something that none of us expected, and the entire room burst out laughing. And you couldn't help it. And it's one of those situations where, obviously, in an exorcism, everybody's under great stress. And in those moments when you're stressed out and something really funny happens, well, the more you try to suppress it, the more the laughter comes out. We had to take a 15-minute break just to compose ourselves and get serious again. And, it was part of the demonic tactic. It gave him a reprieve and allowed him a rest and a way to recoup himself.
While I was putting things together for this video, I came across something very disturbing and something that made me think why it's important for people to have the right information from the right people. This tragedy took place in Italy, where an Italian bricklayer may have forced his 17-year-old daughter to watch as he slaughtered his wife and 2 sons in a bid to rid their home of demons. The children are said to have been strangled, with one of the boys found in chains, while their mother's charred remains were located buried in the garden. The daughter later on said that her father wanted to free them from the devil, and that her father was convinced that the house was haunted by the devil. Neighbors have also said that the man apparently has an obsession with the devil, and even believing that cats were animals of the devil. I'm sorry to share this very disturbing news with you, but well, this is what's currently happening in the world today. And that is why I always place great emphasis on sharing the right information with you from the right people, not just some random preachers on the street who claim he's an exorcist talking about angels and demons. I think it's rather fitting to share this from Father Ripperger after sharing that terrible news with all of you.
You can also have people that's purely psychological. They have different causes, but most people that we see, it's a combination of both. So even if they didn't have psychological problems before the diabolic influence, the demon starts picking at them psychologically, and then they slowly take them down and get them into bad psychological habits. But also you can have people that just they're psychological issues, and then you can have demons layered on top of that. So one of the ones we see commonly, it's becoming more common, particularly because satanic ritual abuse is on the rise. especially since 1980 is when we see a lot of the cases just really start to rise, is dissociative identity disorder, which used to be called multiple personality disorder, which is actually primarily a psychological mechanism that's disordered there. But you can also have diabolic influence layered on top of that. And so they really need to be under the healthcare professionals' guidance and things of that sort of counsel during that process. So, and that's one of the things that the protocol is very helpful for, is it is not just helps to get people cleaned up, but it also can be somewhat of a diagnostic. Mm-hmm. So if, because if it's purely psychological, it's not going to make any difference, their prayer regimen. Whereas if it's diabolic, things will start to change. And in very consistent patterns, because demons are extraordinarily consistent, even though they don't seem like it, but they are, because of the way they attack us, it doesn't seem like they are, but they're very consistent. And so you can actually track the patterns as they go through this and get a sense of your problem is psychological, or it's diabolical, or it's both, because even that has its own distinctive patterns.
And I also think this one from Father Cole was helpful as well.
Because if you look in the New Testament, Christ speaks more about damnation and hell than he does of heaven. And he does that through, many times in dealing with the demons and the rest of it. So there's an intimate relationship between your belief in the evil one and damnation. If you no longer believe in damnation, you rarely think of the demons. If you think too much of the demons, all you think about is damnation. But it's a relative authority they have, a relative dominion they have in this life. And part of our understanding of the resurrection and the passion of the death of Christ is that you and I can fight these persons and overcome them with his help.
By the way, just letting you know, for any of you who are interested to ask the Exorcist Father Daniel Rehill any question, you can post your questions on his Instagram, and he'll answer them on his radio show every Friday on Radio Maria. For me personally, I prefer to ask Father Joseph Iannuzzi, and I have been sending him the questions some of you sent me. But as he's very busy, so his reply can be very slow. Father Carlos Martins was asked this during one of his interviews. How did the Exorcists close a session with them being exposed, still infected by the demons?
So what I do is myself and the team, we recite a Marian hymn, typically the Salve Regina, and that seems to be the magic thing that makes a demon go away. I'll give a command. We're going to bring this to a close now. I command you to stop manifesting and to be at peace and to allow a peace to your victim here. I ask Our Lady to ratify that prayer. We sing the Salve Regina and, poof, they typically leave. Really can't remember a time where they did not.
And now for the last clip in this video, I'd like to share something from Father Ripperger again, and hopefully you'll be able to appreciate the works of these priests much more after this.
It's the same demons a lot of times over and over and over. It's the same stuff over and over and over. So after a while, you're just like, okay, my job is just to stand here with a sledgehammer and Christ just keeps putting rocks in front and I just keep. And so it's a work. It's a lot of work. It's a grind. And the sensational stuff doesn't really, it's interesting. The really interesting stuff is what God compels them to reveal about him or Our Lady or the saints. So you'll learn things about them that is just absolutely stunning. And so those are the things that are really interesting about this line of work, not the stuff the demons do. And so you'll hear certain perfections that saints had, or, because they become the nemesis of a particular demon who inspires people to the opposite vice. And so their nemesis is this other saint. And so sometimes the saint will actually come and afflict the demon during the process, or the demon's forced to reveal who their nemesis is and why. And usually it's some perfection that the saint has. And obviously Our Lady is very involved in this. And so you learn all sorts of things about her interior perfections and her interior life that you would just never hear. I mean, saints, a lot of times saints will talk about these things, but just not with the kind of realism and concreteness that the demons. And sometimes they can lie about that stuff, but it's very rare. They usually lie about other things and not that. So the manifestation is about 95% of what an exorcist sees is called morphing, which is where the person changes shape, right? And they each demon manifests differently, because as St. Thomas Aquinas says, he said, they manifest according to the characteristics or the qualities of their nature. And so you do get a sense of them just by their manifestation. So they'll just manifest, and then they talk through the individual, and then you can compel them to tell, because the church says, ask these questions, It's basically the information you need to get them out. And then once they give you the last piece of information, then they're gone.
Well, then that will be all for the video this time. Again, thank you so much everybody for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully all of you have learned a lot from this video, especially all of you who are still watching this video at this point. Before making this video, I took a couple of days rest without listening to any lecture or interview as I normally would. I was mentally drained. I'm not exactly sure why, but from the start of this channel, I don't think I've ever released a new video more than 3 days apart, because there is so much I'd like to share with you from these priests, especially after reading something like the terrible news about that Italian family. Anyway, for those of you who'd like to support our works, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contribution, and prayer. And until the next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and may God bless you.